So as we approach exam number 2, I didn't want you to forget about all the work that we've done with verbs so far. So chapter 34 is going to give you some more information about verbs, and it will focus on some issues of being consistent with what we're doing with verbs. And a lot of this is if we're talking about past tense, like we did with our narrative, we want to have EDs. We also want to introduce this idea of passive versus active, and this essentially is making certain that we're clear on where the action is. So passive is, we would say, we were intimidated by the much larger players. And so this is that, like, kind of receiving that feeling versus the much larger players intimidated us. Now we have that action. So we've moved our subject to the front, and then we have that action right after. So that's the kind of traditional format that we use. We're just going to kind of dip into the idea of passive and active. So do your best as you start to look these over. And then also, as we've talked about word choice and making edits, we want to make certain that we use standard verbs in formal language. So versus the every day at noon, a swan land on the pond, it clean itself on the warm sunshine. So again, we want to make certain that we have the formal structure, and this is where those S's would appear. A swan lands, it cleans. So if you have some informal habits, then sometimes it makes it hard to work on this. So just like the other chapters, it will give you lots of information about what each of these areas mean. And then, of course, you are going to work on test 1. So there are 3 parts to this, and each one is going to cover a different issue. So in part A, you're going to be looking at those shifts in verb tense. So this is about editing. Can you find the incorrect verb and then on the line put the correct spelling? In section B, flip these sentences around. So they're in passive voice. So what would be another way to say this? You know, who is doing what? Frame it that way. So you'll have to rewrite sentences in B. And then C is just choosing the correct verb for the job. So some of this will be review, a little bit of it new, but you're working on editing and formal control. Good luck.